Hi, this is Hannah and welcome to my channel. Today we're going to do a quick wet embossing. I'm trying to use up all of my scraps and turn them into projects. So I had a little bit of this cardstock left over from a previous project, and I thought that this would be a good opportunity to show beginners a wet embossing technique using white embossing powder. White embossing powder is very pretty. It gives your project a really nice look. I just really love it. It brings out a lot of energy, creative energy in a project. So that's what we're going to do first. I'm going to show you the technique, and then we're going to build a project from the panel that we create. Okay, in order to follow along and do this project with me, you need to gather the following supplies. You need a stencil. I would recommend that you choose a stencil that has well-defined areas. Like some stencils have a lot of open space in them where there aren't designs. Like you might have a butterfly here and a lot of swirly stuff and a butterfly there and swirly stuff in between. If you use one of those, you're going to end up with just a blob of white in the middle, and you don't want that. So I chose to use this leaf, this tropical leaf stencil, because it gives a well-defined pattern, and I thought it would make it easier for you to see the technique and how it works. Okay, then you need a panel. This panel, I think it's 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. I cut it in half because I used the top half on another project, and the reason that it landed in my scrap heap is because you see that I got ink on it somehow, but putting the white embossing powder down is going to cover that up, so I'm not worried about that. Before you put your stencil onto your cardstock for embossing, you want to take an embossing powder tube and wipe it down. This will assure you that the embossing powder will not stick to your card and get all in places that you don't want it. So that's why you want to do that. If you have any textured scraps, that would be those would be good to use, because the embossing powder will pick up the texture of your paper and it becomes a part of your design. I'm putting my tape right on the end here because I want to get as much of the stencil design on here as I can. So I am very careful when I put these down. I'm making these videos for beginners, and I'm not a not a professional video maker, so these won't be probably as smooth as some videos you're accustomed to watching, but I think that I do show some pretty good techniques. So if you can hang in there with me, you'll learn a thing or two. But if you will use the textured cardstock, that would be great if you have it. If not, just use a plain piece of your scrap cardstock, or if you want to cut a piece down to this size and use it, that will work as well. Okay, then you want to place your stencil, and you can manipulate it so that you are capturing as much of the design as you want and where you want it, if you want a particular pattern. And you can use pixie spray, which I have, but I'm not using today. And I generally don't use the pixie spray unless there are some other techniques I do that are a little more involved. So if I'm doing one of those techniques, then I might use the pixie spray. But for this, I just go with the Scotch removable tape. You can use Scotch removable tape, or you can use a low tack is what I'm saying. My husband's like, what is low tack tape? I'm like, no, low tack, honey, low tack. So you can use that as well. Okay, so once you have your stencil on your card, you'll take your watermark ink, and this is embossing ink. I'm using Versamark. There are a number of embossing inks out there. It doesn't matter which one you use. You can use any one you want. So you're going to take your embossing ink and press it down into your stencil. And I try to just go, I know this is a long pad, so I know I'm getting it, but I really want to make sure that that card is wet. When you pull it up, you'll be able to see. Okay? And once that's done, I'm going to use just a regular piece of copier paper. But I'm going to pull up the stencil, and there you can see the design. And I'm going to put this on the paper. And I'm using my white embossing powder that I've been using. I don't think it's fine enough, even though it says super fine. So I ordered some more super fine embossing powder, and I'm just going to sprinkle that all over my project. And I'm going to dump this jar, and then when it's done, I'm just going to tap that out, and then I'll look to make sure that I got it. I got the embossing powder everywhere that I wanted it to go. There's a couple of places in the corner. Okay, now once that's done, you need to take your embossing tool, the heat embossing tool, turn it on, and you're going to emboss the back of your card first. This will help set your embossing ink, and it will also help with warping, because when you emboss, your cards tend to warp. Okay, now I have, this is just a little homemade tool thing I have. I got a piece of scrap wood from my husband's workshop, and I cut up an old craft mat that I was done with, and I just took one of his vice clamps and put it on a board like that, and it holds. You just don't want to cover up too much of your design. Okay, I'm going to turn off the camera and do this off camera and come back, because this thing is so loud. So as it turns out, my pearl white is very different than my white, and it has given this a silvery appearance as opposed to the white that we'll get here on the lavender. So this is going to be a very different project than what I had planned. But what we're going to build right now is the first embossed project that we want to work on today. Okay, so once you've got your panel embossed and you're satisfied with it and you're satisfied with your colors, you need to clean your stencil. I keep baby wipes right here by my side. I know a lot of people keep them in a drawer right next to them. They are immeasurable in crafting. I use baby wipes for everything. I use them to clean my stamps. I use them to keep my craft mats clean. I use them to clean my scissors when they get a little sticky. And when I'm not using color on my stencils, if I'm just using the Versamark ink, then I will just wipe it down with these baby wipes, and it works very well. If you get the water, the unscented and water-based ones, these are really nice. I have a subscription at Amazon on their subscription service, and we get these like every 2 or 3 months because we use them all over the place. You just have to remember you can't flush these down. You can buy the ones that you can flush. They're a little more expensive, so I buy these. Okay. So now that you have your embossed panel, you need to choose a base for your card. I am using a white card base for my project, and I did a lot of stuff in advance in order to save some time. And I need to brush this off a little bit because I got embossing powder on it and I can feel it. Now I was going to tell you, if you're a beginner and you are heat embossing, or wet embossing as we call it, if you're heat embossing for the first time, you don't want to overheat your embossing powder. If it starts to rub off of your design when you do it, that's not what happened here. I just got embossing powder on the cardstock. But if it rubs off of your design, you've overheated it. So you want to be very careful not to do that. So this is just a regular A2 card base. I'm sorry, just a regular A2 card base, which is 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. It's Nina 110-pound solar white, and I'm going to add to it in my embossed panel. And I took my corner rounders and I just rounded the corners because I wanted to see a shape other than a square shape. Now I like things dimensioned, so I'm taking a piece of craft foam, and I use craft foam a lot. It's better for me. Craft foam I like better in a lot of situations than the pop-up foam tape dots. I just like that I can put this down and put glue on it, move it around a little bit, and I just think I get better coverage and a better grip. But there are some times when you probably would want to use the double-sided foam to add dimension to your projects. And of course, with the double-sided tape, you need to apply it on both sides. So that's what I'm doing here. It shouldn't take too long. And the reason I'm walking through this is because I want you to see what I do with my tape once I get it down. They had these foam squares at Dollar Tree. They're little mounting squares, and I love these because they're wide and they're square. Sometimes I will use like these instead of the pull-off tape to put things down if I don't want to go to the trouble of putting down all of this tape. But for this project, I want to make sure that I have a really good firm hold on this, so I'm going to use this. All right, now I'm just using my pokey tool to remove the release paper. And this double-sided tape that I use, it is super duper sticky, and it sticks to me. I'm like struggling. Before I started using the gel polish, I mean, it would pull my nail polish right off my fingers. But I don't have that problem now with the gel. But before, it was like I never wore nail polish because I knew if I came into craft, that was going to be the end of it. And I'm not the one who's going to spend all day, every 2 days or so, doing nails. That's not going to happen. Okay, so I've got my glue on here, which gives me a little time to correct the placement of my foam. I cut the fun foam so that it is about 1/8 of an inch on all sides smaller than my decorative panel, and so that will hide it from view but still give me the oops, sorry. I'm sorry, it'll still give me a good hole. I've lost my train of thought. There we go. Get this on. Ah, stop sticking. Stuff is crazy sticky. And this is, I ordered this this tape on Amazon, and you get 6 rolls of this for $7, or maybe it's less than that. It's a good deal, and it's a strong adhesive, so you don't have to worry about it not holding as well as the more expensive adhesives. I think the only thing that makes the more expensive adhesives more expensive is that the company that makes them has a bigger profit markup. When you're putting this down, make sure that your stencil is facing in the direction that you want it. So there we go. And this is going to be a pretty easy card because it's just this panel and then your sentiment. And on my sentiment, I also placed tape, double-sided tape, because what I did with this one was I cut the frame, and then I glued it together, because some parts of it goes a little bit over, and the sentiment that I stamped on goes a little bit over. So I decided I would just cut these and glue them together, and I just used the tape to achieve that. So the only thing, yeah, I need to take up this little strip of tape here. Don't stick to my fingers. And the sentiment that I'm using, it says, when life throws you a curveball, swing. It comes from a set that Inka Dinka Doo had some years back, and it was all cute sayings by kids, and I just absolutely loved it, so I had to have all of them. So I'm thinking that I'm going to do a set of cards just showcasing all of those adorable little sayings from the kids. I am, with this sentiment, I think I'm going to put a little bit of the 1/8 of an inch tape over I had pulled it up here because I didn't really want the white showing through, but it's too sticky, and I'm afraid the recipient's gonna stick their hand on the back of this and I don't know. I mean, oops. Oh, that's not gonna work. I'm trying to see. It's not that. Where's, oh, there it is. I was like, that's the wrong size. Here's my 1/4 of an inch. There we go. And I'm just going to cover this back here. I just wanted to make sure that these frames, these two frames, didn't separate. Oh, so that's the only one that I pulled up. Okay. Alright, so now I have my sentiment and I'm ready to mount it. And I'm just going to put it in the center of the card. Like I said, this is a really quick card and it's just a fun way to use up scraps that you have. In some of the groups that I'm in, I see a lot of beginners asking what can they do when they don't own a lot of stamps or they don't have a lot of supplies. Cards like this are very easy to make, and you don't need a lot of stamps and you don't need a lot of supplies, and you can change up your cards and present your, you can have maybe only 6 sentiments, but you can present them in such a way and do them in such a way that you can create, you know, 18 different cards, 6 different ways of you know, presenting that one little sentiment. Now, I put enough glue on here. Okay, that is way too much, but we'll see what happens when I stick it down. Okay, and so just now it's just a matter of finding the center of my card, which is right here, right there. And getting that centered and making sure it's straight. It looks a little, okay. And there you have it. That's your card. It's like a 10, maybe 15 minutes it takes to make this card. And so we're going to do another card that's going to have 1 or 2 more pieces, but it will be just as much fun as this one and just as easy too. I'm adding my little button embellishment. All I did was to put a piece of embroidery yarn through a button and tied it off, and then I put double-sided tape on the back of here and added a little glue to it, just as I did with my panels. And for the embroidery thread, I just sort of feathered it out a little bit to make my bow fluffy, and that goes right there. And I know because it has layers, and it's probably not, this is probably not a pure CAS card, clean and simple. The CAS purists might have a problem with this, but in my book, this is a very nice, clean and simple project. And the only other thing I'm going to do is I have some green copy paper, and I'm going to cut that and put it on the inside, and then this card will be done.